Welcome to Old Testament History, Chapter 4, Session 18b, the Middle Prophets, Part 2. The prophet Jeremiah was ministering in Judea in the second tier of prophets, that group, during the last kings who reigned in Judea. During this very same period that Ren just gave us from secular history. And that's when Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed. The kingdom of David and Solomon, which once ruled nearly from river to river, from almost the Nile to almost the Euphrates, had been broken up, much of its riches picked clean, many of its people killed or carried off, and what was left was a mere puppet to the powers that jostled for control of the territory vacated by the demise of Assyria. The countries of Egypt, then Babylon, then Persia, would all take their turns controlling Judea. And, as Ren showed us from Daniel, Greece and Rome would line up after that. Viewing this from the spiritual perspective, the great buffer protecting the Christ line, comprised of its societal, religious, and political elements, had been systematically whittled down by the adversary. His goal all along since the Christ line was revealed in Abraham has been to wipe out the Jews, for if he were able to terminate the Christ line, he'd win. But my advice is to never bet against somebody who has foreknowledge, because you'll never win. The Davidic line did get down to one child at one point, but the child was hidden and later became king, and the line persisted. What had kept Judah free up to this point was if they were faithful to the true God, but the adversary was relentless. And despite the prophet's consistent warnings of the consequences of idolatry, Judah sunk lower and lower. So we now return to Jeremiah as he cries out like the chorus of prophets before him, beseeching them to return to the Lord. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2. Chapter 2, Jeremiah 2:21. He says, Yet I had planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? For though thou wash thee with lye, and take thee much soap, yet thine iniquity is marked before me, saith the Lord God. How can you say, I am not polluted? I have not gone after Baalim. See thy way in the valley, know what thou hast done. Thou art a swift dromedary, a camel, traversing her ways, a wild ass, used to the wilderness, that snuffs up the wind at her pleasure. In her occasion, who can turn her away? What occasion is that? All they that seek her will not weary themselves. In her month, when she's in heat, they will find her. Verse 25, wow. Withhold thy foot from being unshod, and thy throat from thirst. But thou saidst, there's no hope. No, for I have loved strangers, and after them will I go. As the thief is ashamed when he is found, so is the house of Israel ashamed. They, their kings, their princes, and their priests, and their prophets, saying to a stock, something carved from wood, you are my father. And to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. For they have turned their back against me, God said, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble, they will say, arise and save us. But where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise, if they can save you in the time of your trouble. For according to the number of thy cities are thy gods, O Judah. And so Jeremiah goes on like this for chapters. He lets them have it. Look at chapter 3, verse 6. Jeremiah 3, verse 6. The Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, have you seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She is gone up upon every high mountain, and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot. Israel, the northern kingdom. And I said, after she had done all these things, turn thou unto me. But she returned not. And her treacherous sister, Judah, the southern kingdom, saw it. And I saw when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, the northern kingdom, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister, Judah, the southern kingdom, feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass through the likeness of her whoredom that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and with stocks. Yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah hath not turned unto me, God said, with her whole heart, but feignedly, saith the Lord. And the Lord said to me, the backsliding Israel hath justified herself more than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words towards the north, and say, return, thou backsliding Israel, saith the Lord, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep anger forever. Only acknowledge thine iniquity, that thou hast transgressed against the Lord thy God, and hast scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree, and you have not obeyed my voice, saith the Lord. So Jeremiah beseeched them to return to the Lord, but they would not hearken. He warned them repeatedly that they would suffer the same fate as their sister Israel. Had the parallel between them been positive, the comparison would have been framed in the terms of using brother Israel, but it was negative, hence sister. What else could he do? He saw the oncoming freight train of consequences packed with terrible cargo barreling down the track towards them, yet they were oblivious. Then, like all the other prophets of this period in Jeremiah, there is a reversal, a promise of the future. Look at Jeremiah 3:14. Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and bring you to Zion, and I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. And it shall come to pass, when you be multiplied and increased in the land in those days, saith the Lord, they shall say no more, the ark of the covenant of the Lord, neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done any more. This is obviously future stuff now. At that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord, and all nations shall be gathered unto it. To the name of the Lord, to Jerusalem, neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. So, wow. It even mentions the Ark of the Covenant there. The greatest icon of Judaism being phased out. That was unthinkable at that time. It represented the presence of God in the congregation. It was in the Holy of Holies, behind a curtain in the temple. But one day, the Messiah would become the way into the Holy of Holies. Now, they believed that would occur when they were raised from death and live in the millennial kingdom. But God knew that we Christians would have access to Him, and He would live in us instead of a building. No one knows what happened to the ark when the Babylonians destroyed the temple. There are rumors about where it went. They didn't find it. The Babylonians never found it, else it surely would have been mentioned. There's even a place in Ethiopia where it is said to now reside, and that's attended by a priest, but they won't show it to anybody. There are rumors that it's hidden in a secret vault in Jerusalem, and movies and TV documentaries have been dedicated to finding it and opening it to see what's inside. Well, we know what's in there from what the Word says. The 10 Commandments, Aaron's rod that budded, a pot of manna, and Michael Jackson's other glove. But the Word also says it'll be made obsolete. Well, hallelujah, Sakatuya. Back to Jeremiah. His cries got more and more strident. He prophesied against princes and priests and pastors and prophets. Yeah, there even were rival prophets, plural, who contradicted Jeremiah. Look at chapter 14, Jeremiah 14, verse 13. Then said I, Lord God, behold, the prophets say unto them, you shall not see the sword, neither shall you have famine, but I will give you assured peace in this place. Just telling them stuff they wanted to hear. Then the Lord said to me, the prophets prophesy lies in my name. I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither spake unto them. They prophesy unto you a false vision and divination, a thing of nothing, and the deceit of their heart. Therefore thus saith the Lord concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name, and I sent them not. Yet they say, sword and famine shall not be in this land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. And the people to whom they prophesy shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem, because of the famine and the sword, and they shall have none to bury them, their wives, nor their sons, nor their daughters, for I will pour their wickedness upon them. Wow. But the resistance against Jeremiah built in strength and in numbers during this period. Jeremiah complained to God, and God reassured him. Chapter 15, verse 15, Jeremiah 15, 15. O Lord, thou knowest, remember me and visit me, and revenge me of my persecutors. Take me not away in thy long suffering. Know that for thy sake I have suffered rebuke. Thy words were found, and I did eat them. This is when they found that scroll in the temple, when they were repairing it. And thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of mine heart. For I am called by thy name, O Lord God of hosts. I sat not in the assembly of the mockers, nor rejoiced. I sat alone because of thy hand, for thou hast filled me with indignation. Why is my pain perpetual, and my wound incurable, which refuses to be healed? Wilt thou altogether be unto me as a liar, and as the waters that fail? Therefore thus saith the Lord, if thou return, then I will bring thee again, and thou shalt stand before me. And if thou take forth the precious from the vial, thou shalt be as my mouth. Let them return unto thee, but return not thou unto them. See, there was a mixed congregation. Some people believed, and some people did not. And that's what prophets do. in a mixed congregation. They separate the precious from the vile. Remember, Jeremiah's calling was to root out, to pull down, to destroy, and to throw down. But it also was to build and to plant. Building is an immediate profit, and planting is an ultimate profit, for the seed will go on and on. It was a serious fight. The adversary was continuously at work. So, a genuine prophet must be continually vigilant. So, how do folks know which is which? Should prophets proclaim their own genuineness? Well, that's easy to do. Everyone can do that, whether they're genuine or counterfeit. God told Paul to assert his office as an apostle. Other apostles didn't do that. The best way in either case is for a prophet or an apostle or a pastor, etc., to show their genuineness and let God work. That's how it best happens. In the body of Christ, it is the supply from God which makes a minister pivotal, according to Ephesians 4:16. They can't will it. They can't manufacture it, because it's not just teaching. It's the appropriateness and the timing of their message that resonates in hearts, that rings true, that is something only God can orchestrate. So, if your favorite prophet is firing blanks, well, you know what to do. God can work in the hearts of the congregation, and He will let the faithful know who the genuine is. And God will back them up. Chapter 15, verse 20 of Jeremiah. And I, God said to Jeremiah, will make you unto this people a fenced, brazen wall. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee to save thee and to deliver thee, saith the Lord. And I will deliver thee out of the hand of the wicked, and I will redeem thee out of the hand of the terrible. But sometimes prophets have to make sacrifices. Look at what Jeremiah was told. Chapter 16, verse 1. Chapter 16, verse 1. The word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Thou shalt not take thee a wife, neither shalt thou have sons or daughters in this place. For thus saith the Lord concerning the sons and concerning the daughters that are born in this place, and concerning their mothers that bear them, and concerning their fathers that begat them in this land, they shall die of grievous deaths. They shall not be lamented, neither shall they be buried, but they shall be as dung upon the face of the earth, and they shall be consumed by the sword and by famine, and their carcasses shall be meat for the fowls of heaven and for the beasts of the earth. Wow. Jeremiah bravely stayed the course, even though his detractors were powerful. They did not want to believe that the freight train was headed towards them at full speed. Chapter 19, verse 14. Then came Jeremiah from Tophet, whither the Lord had sent him, to prophesy. And he stood in the court of the Lord's house, and said to all the people, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I will bring upon this city and upon all her towns all the evil that I have pronounced against it, because they have hardened their necks, and they would not hear my words. Now, chapter 20, verse 1. Pashur, the son of Immer, the priest, who is also the chief governor in the house of the Lord, heard that Jeremiah prophesied these things. Then Pashur smote Jeremiah the prophet, and put him in the stocks that were in the high gate of Benjamin, which is by the house of the Lord. And it came to pass on the morrow that Pashur brought forth Jeremiah out of the stocks. And then Jeremiah said to him, the Lord hath not called your name Pashur, which means joy all around in Aramaic, but Magor Misabib, that means terror all around in Hebrew. Verse 4, for thus saith the Lord, behold, I will make you a terror to yourself and to all your friends, and they shall fall by the sword of their enemies, and thine eyes shall see it. And I will give all Judah into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall carry them captive into Babylon, and shall slay them with the sword. Moreover, I will deliver all the strength of the city, and all the laborers thereof, and all the precious things thereof, and all the treasures of the kings of Judah will I give into the hand of their enemies, who shall spoil them, and take them, and carry them to Babylon. And thou, Pashur, and all that dwell in your house, shall go into captivity, and you shall come to Babylon, and there you shall die, and shall be buried there, thou and all thy friends, to whom thou hast prophesied lies. Oh, wow. That took guts to stand up to the priest's son, who is the chief manager over the affairs of the temple. But Jeremiah was human. Afterwards, he was saying to himself and to God, wow, what did I just do? Elisha had a human reaction too after he had stood up to King Ahab. Remember, he asked for a minstrel to play to calm him down so he could receive the guidance to tell Jehoshaphat what to do. Well, Jeremiah wasn't all spirit. He was human too. Chapter 20, verse 7, he says, O Lord, thou hast deceived me, and I was deceived. Thou art stronger than me, and hast prevailed. And I am in derision daily, and everyone mocks me. For since I cried out, I spoke, I cried out, I cried violence and spoil. Because of the word of the Lord was made a reproach unto me, and a derision daily. And then I said, I won't make mention of him, nor speak any more in his name. But his word was in my heart a burning fire, shut up in my bones, and I was weary with forbearing, and I could not stay. For I heard the defaming of many, fear on every side. Report, say they, and we're going to tell on you. All my familiars watched for my halting, saying, perhaps he'll be enticed, and we'll prevail against him, and we'll take our revenge on him. See, Jeremiah was a human being with weaknesses and emotions. He humbly questioned himself. Am I right? Could I be wrong? Well, remember, one of the traits of prophets is they want to be right. Genuine prophets are not in it for the power or the money or the control or the physical benefits. If somebody is motivated by those things, they're dangerous. Like 1 Peter chapter 5 declares, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2, for leaders, feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. Neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. Like Paul said in the book of Timothy, godliness is not gain. That's a surefire way to discern which from which, because a genuine minister does not plot how to accrue gain from their people. The profit factor should never enter into a prophet's thinking. And ego and pride and envy also are red flags. Look at Jeremiah's reaction in chapter 20, verse 11. But the Lord is with me as a mighty, terrible one. Therefore my persecutors shall stumble, and they shall not prevail. And they shall be greatly ashamed, for they shall not prosper, and their everlasting confusion shall never be forgotten. But, O Lord of hosts, that tries the righteous and sees the reins and the heart, let me see thy vengeance on them, for unto thee have I opened my cause. Wow, there it is. God sees the righteous, and they are conscious of that. Their reins and their hearts are open to Him. Wow. The sub-theme in all these prophets that we've seen in this section, the sub-theme is how to be a prophet. If you want to be a genuine minister, you have to monitor your reins. The word is kidneys in Hebrew. Your guts, your loins, your emotions, your desires and impulses. You have to monitor those. And your heart, your character, your believing, your essence. One must allow the great umpire to regulate what emanates from them. But you put those two together, reins and hearts, it is a merismos, figure of speech, an A to Z, a soup to nuts, the extremities implying everything in between. That's why Jesus told the apostles, if your eye offend you, what you think, or your hand offend you, what you do, or your foot offend you, where you go. If that offends you and gets you in trouble, it's leading you astray. Cut it off. Not physically, but figuratively. It is that serious, because if you lead God's people, the last thing you want to see is your weaknesses and failings reflected in those who follow you. Whoa, Nelly. And if one cannot do that, they're in the wrong business. Go do something else. That's why one does not reprove out of anger. That's easy. But out of love, because it's hard. All too often when our examples have been of stern reproof, it's been out of anger. So we have mistakenly thought that when we put our prophet hat on, we have to be angry. Well, if one uses that as a motivator, they're going to miss guidance, I guarantee it. So if you want to be a prophet, I recommend you better be genuine. Let God try your reins and heart. Now, I don't mean that one's always second-guessing oneself. Because to be the prophet, you got to believe and assert God's will. And if there's resistance, one must be sure of themselves. But you got to be meek and genuine. And that starts with the reins and the heart. Jeremiah had a tough assignment. He ministered during the decline of the kingdom of Judah. He told them Babylon was coming. They didn't believe it. They believed Egypt would save them. But Josiah was killed by Pharaoh. Then Jehoahaz, his son, also called Shalom, I think, was deposed by Pharaoh, and he died in Egypt. And then Jehoiakim was installed by Pharaoh as a vassal king. But Babylon defeated Egypt, and Jehoiakim then served Babylon 3 years. During this time is when Daniel was carried away to Babylon, and the book of Daniel starts. But then against Jeremiah's advice, Jehoiakim rebelled against Babylon. So later, Nebuchadnezzar deposed Jehoiakim and made Jehoiachin king instead. But that was short-lived, because Jehoiachin was only 8 years old. Consequently, Jehoiachin was deposed by Nebuchadnezzar after 3 months and carried off to Babylon. Jehoiachin remained captive in prison there in Babylon for 37 years. Then Zedekiah was installed as a puppet by Nebuchadnezzar, but then he rebelled. Jeremiah had told him, don't rebel, pay tribute. But Zedekiah wouldn't listen, and as a result, Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed, and the upper echelon of society was either murdered or carried away. Only the poor people were left, as Ren described to us. After that, there were no more kings. The kingdom was gone. Then Nebuchadnezzar made Gedaliah governor of Judah. But shortly thereafter, he was assassinated, and many of the remaining Jews fled to Egypt. But God said, never go back there. But when all the dust cleared, Jeremiah was still standing. He persevered through it all. His life had been threatened. He was persecuted. They put him in stocks, later in jail, and even in what might have been a cesspool. But he prophesied, and what he said came to pass, and all his opponents either died or carried off. Jeremiah was left exonerated. After that summary, here are some of the biblical details that went on in Jerusalem when all those events that Ren described happened. So, 2 Chronicles 36, verse 1, he read this section about the son of Josiah was made king in his father's stead in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old. He began to reign. He reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. King of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem, condemned the land in 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim, his brother, king over Judah, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. So he was a puppet. And Necho took Jehoahaz, his brother, carried him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. And against him came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon and put them in his temple in Babylon. So, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim is the first carrying away, I believe that is correct, and the 70 years begins and the book of Daniel begins. Now, 2 Chronicles 36, verse 8, I think Ren read this too. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, and Jehoiachin his son reigned in his stead. Jehoiachin was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. And when the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and he did that which is evil in the sight of the Lord, and he humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of the Lord. During Zedekiah's reign is when the book of Ezekiel starts. Look at Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Chebar, that the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God, Ezekiel says. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Chebar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him. So, this is when the book of Ezekiel starts. The book of Ezekiel is time-stamped by the years of Jehoiachin's captivity. Remember, Jehoiachin was that 8-year-old king temporarily installed by Nebuchadnezzar and then deposed 3 months and 10 days later and carried off to Babylon. Ezekiel was a priest among the captives in Babylonia, southeast of the capital city of Babylon. So now, 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel are all concurrent accounts of the most dire time in Jewish history, and we saw how God made sure we knew exactly when that was from Ren's teaching. It just fits. Wow. And so Jeremiah is ministering in Jerusalem. Daniel is in the city of Babylon. And Ezekiel is ministering among the captives from Judah in the countryside of Babylonia. So now we continue with more excerpts of Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 1. I think Ren read from this too. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Ren cleared up all that chronology. Verse 2. The which Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. From the 13th year of Josiah, that's when his ministry began, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even unto this day, that is the 23rd year, Jeremiah said, the word of the Lord hath come unto me, and I have spoken to you, rising early and speaking, but you have not hearkened. And the Lord sent unto you all his servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, but you've not hearkened, nor inclined your ear. They said, turn ye again, now every one, from his evil way, and from the evil of your doings, and dwell in the land which the Lord hath given unto you and to your fathers forever and ever. We witnessed that in all these studies of the prophets that we've read. And go not after their gods and serve them to worship them, and provoke me not to anger with the works of your hands, and I will do you no hurt. We know that's the number one bozo no-no thing you should not do. Go after other gods. But you have not hearkened to me, saith the Lord, that you might provoke me to anger with the works of your hands to your own hurt. Therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, because you've not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon, my servant, and bring them against this land, and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and I will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and a hissing, and a perpetual desolations. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, and the voice of gladness, and the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, and the sound of the millstones, and the light of the candle. All of society will be in shambles. That's what that means. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment. And these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And it will come to pass when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity in the land of the Chaldeans, and I will make it perpetual desolations. The city of Babylon is still a ruin to this day. And I will bring upon that land all my words which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah had prophesied against all the nations. There was a book? There was a book? Yes, there was a book even then. It was written even then. Chapter 26, verse 1. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word from the Lord, saying, Thus saith the Lord, stand in the court of the Lord's house, and speak unto all the cities of Judah, which come to worship in the Lord's house, all the words I command you to speak unto them. Diminish not a word. If so be they will hearken, and turn every man from his evil way, that I may repent me of the evil which I propose to do unto them, because of the evil of their doings. Thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord, if thou wilt not hearken to me, to walk in my law, which I have set before you, to hearken to the words of my servants, the prophets, whom I sent to you, both rising up early and sending them, but you have not hearkened, then I will make this house, the temple, like Shiloh, and I will make this city a curse to all the nations of the earth. What he's saying is, there was a time the Philistines attacked Shiloh, where the tabernacle was, and they stole the ark. Verse 7. So the priests and the prophets and all the people heard Jeremiah speaking those words in the house of the Lord. Now it came to pass, when Jeremiah had made an end of speaking all the Lord had commanded him to speak unto all the people, that the priests and the prophets and all the people took him, saying, You shall surely die. Why have you prophesied in the name of the Lord, saying, This house shall be like Shiloh, and this city shall be desolate, without an inhabitant? And all the people were gathered against Jeremiah and the house of the Lord. When the princes of Judah heard these things, they came from the king's house unto the house of the Lord, and sat down in the entry of the new gate of the Lord's house. Then spake the priests and the prophets unto the princes to all the people, saying, This man is worthy to die, for he hath prophesied against this city, as you've heard with your ears. Then spake Jeremiah unto all the princes and to all the people, saying, The Lord sent me to prophesy against this house and against this city, all the words you've heard. Now therefore, now amend your ways and your doings, and obey the voice of the Lord your God, and the Lord will repent him of the evil that he had pronounced against you. Wow, that took guts. They were saying they were going to kill him, and he stood up to them. Woo! Verse 14, And for me, behold, I'm in your hand, to do with me as seems good and meet to you. But know ye for certain, that if you put me to death, you shall surely bring innocent blood upon yourselves, and upon this city, and upon all the inhabitants thereof. For of a truth the Lord has sent me unto you to speak all these words in your ears. Whew. Then said the princes and all the people to the priests and to the prophets, This man is not worthy to die, for he has spoken to us in the name of the Lord our God. How did they know that? God somehow worked it, and here's how. Verse 17. Then rose up certain of the elders of the land, and spake to all the assembly of the people, saying, Micah, the Morashite, prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and spake to all the people of Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Zion shall be plowed like a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of a forest. Did Hezekiah, king of Judah, and all Judah put him at all to death? Did he not fear the Lord, and besought the Lord, and the Lord had repented him of the evil which he had pronounced against them? Thus might we procure great evil against our souls. And there also was a man that prophesied in the name of the Lord, Urijah, the son of Shemaiah of Kirjath-jearim, who prophesied against this city and against this land according to all the words of Jeremiah. And when Jehoiakim the king with all his mighty men and all the princes heard his words, the king sought to put him to death. But when Urijah heard it, he was afraid and fled and went into Egypt. And Jehoiakim king sent men to Egypt, Elhanan the son of Achbor, and certain men that were with him, to Egypt. And they fetched forth Urijah out of Egypt, and brought him unto Jehoiakim the king, who slew him with a sword, and cast his dead body into the graves of the common people. Nevertheless, the hand of Ahikam the son of Shaphan was with Jeremiah, and they should not give him into the hand of the people to put him to death. That believer got his name in the Bible. Woo! So Jeremiah was spared, because there were still men of integrity, men who believed the word. Micah's other prophecies had come to pass, He'd passed the prophet's acid test. You know, if it don't come to pass, don't believe him. But if it does come to pass, he's genuine. This is the case when a ministry or a nation falters, because not everyone is evil. But the adversary goes for the leaders, and if he can control them, he can affect the rest, whether they be good or evil. That's why God holds leaders to a higher standard. Chapter 27 of Jeremiah, verse 1. See, these are all the things that were going on in Jerusalem, what Jeremiah was doing at the same time as all those other events that Ren described to us. Chapter 27, verse 1. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Thus saith the Lord to me, Make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon your neck, and send them to the king of Edom, king of Moab, king of the Ammonites, king of Phoenicia, king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah, king of Judah. And command them, saying to their masters, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, God of Israel, Thus shall you say to your masters, I made the earth, and the man and the beast that are upon the ground, by my great power and my outstretched arm, and have given it to whom it seemed meet unto me. And now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my servant. And the beast of the field I have given to him also, to serve him. And all the nations shall serve him, and his son, and his son's son, until the very time of his land come. And then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. And it shall come to pass that the nation and the kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with a sword, with a famine, with a pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. Therefore hearken not ye to your prophets, nor to your diviners, nor to your dreamers, nor to your enchanters, nor to your sorcerers, which speak unto you, saying, What you want to hear. You shall not serve the king of Babylon, for they prophesy a lie unto you, to remove you far from your land, that I should drive you out, and that you should perish. But the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, those will I let remain still in their own land, saith the Lord, and they shall till it and dwell therein. Now, wow, that's graphic. He made a yoke and was wearing it. Jeremiah 36. Now, the book of Jeremiah is not chronological. The companion Bible shows its structure. It's not chronological. Jeremiah 36, verse 1. Jeremiah 36, 1. It came to pass in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, that this word came unto Jeremiah from the Lord. Take thee a roll of a book, and write therein all the words that I have spoken unto you against Israel, and against Judah, and against all the nations, from the day I spoke unto you, from the days of Josiah, even unto this day. It may be that the house of Judah will hear all the evil which I propose to do unto them, that they may return every man from his evil way, that I may forgive their iniquity and their sin. Then Jeremiah called Baruch the son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the Lord which he had spoken to him upon a roll of a book. That's the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah had memorized all of the words that God had told him ever since the beginning, and he dictated it to Baruch. Verse 5. And Jeremiah commanded Baruch, saying, I am restricted, and I can't go into the house of the Lord.
Oh, they were angry at him because he said all those things. Jeremiah was banished from the temple. So he says, Baruch, you go. Verse 6, therefore go you and read in the scroll, which thou hast written from my mouth, the words of the Lord in the ears of the people in the Lord's house upon a fasting day. And also thou shalt read them in the ears of all Judah that come out of their cities. So they had fasting days occasionally when there was some emergency or whatever in response to that. So he says, okay, we're going to have this all written up and we're ready. Verse 7, it may be that they will present their supplications before the Lord and will return everyone from his evil way, for great is the anger and the fury that the Lord has pronounced against this people. And Baruch the son of Neriah did according to all that Jeremiah the prophet had commanded him, reading in the book the words of the Lord in the Lord's house. So they were ready when the next fast day came. It came a few months later, Jeremiah 36, verse 9. And it came to pass in the 5th year of Jehoiakim the son of Josiah, king of Judah, in the 9th month, that they proclaimed a fast before the Lord to all the people in Jerusalem, and to all the people that came in from the cities of Judah unto Jerusalem. Then read Baruch in the book of the words of Jeremiah in the house of the Lord, in the chamber of Jeremiah the son of Shaphan the scribe, in the higher court at the entry of the new gate of the Lord's house, in the ears of all the people. So, up to that point, everything in the book of Jeremiah was written. The Jews were the most literate society upon earth. In most cultures, only the scribes and priests and merchants and government, military leaders could read. But God had commanded that all Jews be able to read the word. I think, therefore, the prophets disseminated their prophecies in writing just like this. Verse 11. When Micaiah the son of Gemariah the son of Shaphan heard out of the book all the words of the Lord, then they told the princes and the kings about it. Verse 17, they asked Baruch, saying, tell us, how did you write all these things in his mouth? And Baruch said, well, he said all these words unto me with his mouth, and I wrote them down with ink in the book. Duh! So Jeremiah dictated it. Well, same's indicated in Romans. Romans 16, verse 22, says, I, Tertius, who wrote this epistle, salute you in the Lord. Well, who dictated it? Paul did. Who wrote it? Tertius. Back to Jeremiah 36, verse 19. Then said the princes to Baruch, you better go and hide yourself, you and Jeremiah. Don't let anybody know where you are. They went into the king, into the court, but they laid up the scroll in the chamber of Elisha the scribe, and told all the words in the ears of the king. So the king sent Jehudah to fetch the roll, and he took it out of Elisha the scribe's chamber. And Jehudah read it, the scroll, the book of Jeremiah, in the ears of the king, and in the ears of all the princes which stood beside the king. Now the king sat in the winter house in the 9th month, and there was a fire on the hearth burning before him. And it came to pass, when Jehudah had read 3 or 4 pages, he cut it with a knife and cast it into the fire that was on the hearth, until all of the roll was consumed in the fire that was on the hearth. He burnt up the book of Jeremiah. Yet they were not afraid, nor rent their garments, neither the king, nor any of his servants that heard all these words. They rent not their garments. What does that imply? I think it implies this was not the first time a prophet had written what they prophesied. See, this is a formal form of prophecy. It was the official form. They prophesied vocally, verbally, but I think since the people were literate, I think they wrote it just like this. All of them. I think they wrote it just like this. Verse 24. They were not afraid. They didn't rend their garments. Verse 25. Nevertheless, Elathan and Delilah and Gemariah had made an intercession to the king that he would not burn the roll, but he would not hear them. Well, if this was the first time that Jeremiah had ever written anything, or any prophet had written anything, do you think they would have done that? But the king commanded Jerahmeel, the son of Hamak, and Seraiah, the son of Azriel, and Shemaiah, the son of Abdiel, to take Baruch the scribe and Jeremiah the prophet. Where do you think they were going to take them? But the Lord hid them. Then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah after the king had burned the roll, and the words which Baruch wrote at the mouth of Jeremiah, saying, Take thee again another roll, and write in it all the former words that were in the first roll, which Jehoiakim the king of Judah hath burned. And thou shalt say to Jehoiakim king of Judah, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast burned this roll, saying, Why have you written therein, saying, The king of Babylon shall surely come and destroy this land, and shall cause to cease from thence man and beast? Therefore thus saith the Lord of Jehoiakim king of Judah, He shall have none to sit on the throne of David, and his dead body shall be cast out in the day to the heat, and in the night to the frost. And I will punish him and his seed and his servants for their iniquity, and I will bring upon them and upon all the inhabitants of Jerusalem and upon the men of Judah all the evil that I pronounced against them, but they hearken not. Chapter 36, verse 32. Then took Jeremiah another roll, gave it to Baruch the scribe, the son of Neriah, who wrote therein from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the book which Jehoiakim, king of Judah, had burnt in the fire. And there were added besides of them many like words. And that is the book of Jeremiah from which we are reading tonight. Woo! Ha ha! I do want to go a little bit longer tonight, if I can. Look at Jeremiah 28, verse 1. Jeremiah 28, verse 1. It came to pass the same year, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 4th year, in the 5th month, that Hananiah, the son of Azur, the prophet, who was of Gibeon, spake unto me in the house of the Lord in the presence of the priests and all the people, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. Within 2 full years will I bring again to this place all the vessels of the Lord's house that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon took away from this place and carried them to Babylon. And I will bring again to this place Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, that's Jehoiachin, as we know him, king of Judah, with all the captives of Judah that went into Babylon, saith the Lord, for I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. Well, that's a problem. Because Jeremiah had been using that prop, the yoke, to illustrate what the surrounding kingdoms should do in the face of Babylon's expansionist actions. He had been doing that for years, since the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim. So, for Hananiah to do this was a direct challenge to Jeremiah and his credibility. Micah, Isaiah, and Hosea didn't fight each other. They supported and sparked off of each other. God gave them matching revelation. They communicated, I believe. They collaborated. There was no battle of ego between them. It's the same between Ren and me. Do we think exactly alike? Probably not. But I wouldn't want that. Ren and I work together for your sake and for the sake of the movement of God's Word. We've discussed things a little bit. I've learned things from him and vice versa. But have we publicized any differences we may have? No. So, for Hananiah to do that, what he did in direct contradiction of Jeremiah was very wrong. Verse 5, Then the prophet Jeremiah said to the prophet Hananiah in the presence of the priests and in the presence of all the people that stood in the house of the Lord. Even the prophet Jeremiah said, Amen. The Lord so do. The Lord perform thy words which thou hast prophesied, to bring again the vessels of the Lord's house, and all that is carried away captive from Babylon to this place. Well, God had told Jeremiah that captivity was going to be 70 years. Ain't near that. There are two ways this verse could be rendered. Verse 6. One would be, boy, I wish you were right. And the other is sarcastic. Verse 7. Nevertheless, hear thou now this word that I speak in thine ears, and in the ears of all the people. The prophets that have been before me, and before thee, of old, prophesy both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. The prophet which prophesied of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall that prophet be known, that the Lord hath truly sent him. Then Hananiah the prophet took the yoke from off the prophet Jeremiah's neck and broke it. So instead of backing down, he escalated. And Hananiah spake in the presence of all the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from the neck of all nations, within the space of 2 full years. And the prophet Jeremiah went his way. Then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, after Hananiah the prophet had broken the yoke from off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah, saying, You go and tell Hananiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast broken the yokes of wood, but I'll make for them yokes of iron. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and they shall serve him, and I have given him the beasts of the field too. Then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah the prophet, Hear now, Hananiah, the Lord hath not sent thee, but thou makest this people to trust in a lie. Therefore thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will cast thee from off the face of the earth. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord. So Hananiah the prophet died the same year, in the 7th month. Wow! That was radical. But lives depended upon obedience. Meanwhile, the prophet Ezekiel was ministering amongst the captives in Babylon who had been carried off earlier, and he was declaring similar pronouncements. Those people there knew they were in trouble, but God was even showing Ezekiel what was going on in Jerusalem. Look at Ezekiel chapter 8. Ezekiel chapter 8. Verse 1, It came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month. This is the 6th year of Jehoiachin's captivity. All right? So Jehoiachin was taken captive, and Zedekiah was made king in his stead. So this is in the middle of Zedekiah's reign, the 6th year of the captivity of Jehoiachin. So, 5th day of the month, 6th month, 5th day of the month, I sat in mine house, Ezekiel says, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Lord fell there upon me. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as of the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward, fire, and from his loins even upward, as the appearance of brightness, and as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of a hand, and took me by the lock of my head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and heaven, and brought me in visions of God to Jerusalem, 500 miles away, to the door of the inner gate that looks towards the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. So they had a pagan idol of image there, right there. God showed it to him. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. And then he said to me, Son of man, lift up your eyes now the way toward the north. So I lifted up my eyes the way towards the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy was in the entry. And he said furthermore unto me, Son of man, do you see what they do? Even the great abominations that the house of Israel commits there, that I should go far off from my sanctuary? But turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations. Verse 7, and he brought me to the door of the court. And when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. And he said to me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I had digged in the wall, behold, a door. And he said to me, go in. And behold, the wicked abominations that they do here. Wow, what a vision this was. And I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the walls round about. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel, the Sanhedrin. And in the midst of them stood Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand. That symbolizes prayer. And a thick cloud of incense went up. Those are prayers. And he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery? For they say, the Lord doesn't see us anymore. The Lord's forsaken the earth. This is very vivid imagery to express how even the Sanhedrin, the 70 elders, had forsaken God, saying he was no longer watching over them, and that he had forsaken their land. And you know what they did then? They therefore were turning to other gods for aid. Now, there's disagreements among scholars where this room was. But was it a physical room? It spoke of every man having chambers of imagery. Well, did every one of the 70 have a room for his idols? I don't think so. But this is portrayed as one room behind a door that had a wall built over it. Well, what kind of room was that? It's quite possible that this actually was a representation of their minds. I heard that somewhere, I can't remember where. But they, in the dark, secretly where no one could see, were worshiping devil spirits. That's what all the creeping things and abominable beasts represented. Wow, yeah. The wall was their heads. The door was the entry to their minds, the trap door. Because, one must realize that in a vision, everything could be symbolic. Verse 13. Wow. He said to me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the house of the Lord, which is toward the north. And behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then he said unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? turn thee yet again, and I will see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they worshipped the sun towards the east. Then he said to me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah, that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose. Now, this put the branch to their nose. Their nose is one of the emendations of the Sopharim, because in the original text it said, my nose. But the Sopharim scribes, they couldn't take that. Oh, no. Pillai says, a branch to the nose means they would wear a piece of jewelry on their nose with a vine branch on it that symbolized God's presence. And they would wear that to ward off evil, like some people wear a St. Christopher medal. So, if that's what that meant, then God was portraying that while they were doing all these terrible things, they hypocritically were wearing the trappings of faith which purportedly honored Him. But He portrayed it like they were shoving it in His face, in His nose. Wow. That's excruciating. But in Jerusalem, things got worse for Jeremiah. Therefore, he was still faithful to speak the truth, though. Ultimately, doom came to their front door and was banging on it. The Babylonian army arrived, like Ren had showed us. We'll end up here in Jeremiah 32. Jeremiah 32, verse 1 of the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah from the Lord in the 10th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. He cleared that all up. For then the king of Babylon's army besieged Jeremiah, and Jeremiah the prophet was shut up in the court of the prison, which was the king of Judah's house. They put him in jail. They put him in jail for what he had said. We'll get into that next session next week. For Zedekiah, king of Judah, had shut him up, saying, Wherefore dost thou prophesy and say, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will give this city into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall take it. Well, he did. And at the very same time, the prophet Ezekiel was told by God to portray what was going on 500 miles across the desert in Jerusalem in Ezekiel chapter 4. Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 1. God told Ezekiel, Thou also, son of man, take thee a tile, lay it before thee, and portray upon it the city, even Jerusalem, and lay siege against it, and build a fort against it, and cast them out against it, to set the camp also against it, and set a battering ram against it round about. Moreover, take thou unto thee an iron pan, and set it for a wall of iron between thee and the city, and set thy face against it, and it shall be besieged, and thou shalt lay siege against it. This shall be a sign to the house of Israel. So, at the very same time the city of Jerusalem was besieged by Nebuchadnezzar's army, Ezekiel was showing them what was happening. They didn't have television. They had Ezekiel's vision. And that's where I'll leave you tonight, and we'll get into it more
next week. Bless you.